Three candidates are in the running for 2 seats on Cupertino City Council. As part of the City Channel's ongoing coverage of this race toward Election Tuesday, you're about to see an up-close and personal introduction to one of those 3 candidates. This is Candidates Q&A with tonight's featured City Council candidate, Michael Chang. Tonight's segment was recorded on Thursday, September 16th.
Hello, I'm Michael Cronk, a staff writer with the San Jose Mercury News. I'm here with Michelle Koo of the Cupertino Courier. This is Candidates Q&A, and today we'll be interviewing Michael Chang, who's seeking re-election to the Cupertino City Council in November. Welcome, Michael.
Pleasure to be here.
When you were elected 4 years ago, it was a milestone. You were the first Asian American elected to the Cupertino City Council. And I know you've been very involved in the issue of diversity and dialogue with the community and getting more diversity into the process. How would you characterize the past year, and what do you see for Cupertino in the future?
Yeah, it has been a very gratifying 4 years on City Council. One of the themes that I ran on is to bring the community together, to recreate community. And as we did that work, we found a lot of enthusiasm in the community, and we were able to do that very well. To give you some specific examples, we brought back the 4th of July fireworks. That was a big community celebration. It was an important day, both historically and symbolically. And bringing back the fireworks is probably one of the best things we've done as a council, because it gives us an opportunity to all come together in a day that really means so much to us. We instituted new programs, for instance, Shakespeare in the Park, that has been very successful. We have had very frank dialogues, whether it be town hall meetings or focus groups, to talk about changes in the valley, of which Cupertino is a part of that change, and how people feel about those changes, whether it be technological change, social change, educational change, and cultural change. And we were able to talk in a very supportive fashion and also a very frank way about how we can support each other through all these changes. So it has been gratifying, and we've done other activities such as introduce the, which we're going to have very soon, is the citywide garage sale that has been a resounding success with over 500 families participating. So in this day and age where everyone is so busy, where life seems to be a little bit more fractured, where community is a little bit more harder to achieve, I am glad to say that I have been part of a council that have worked hard to build our community, to create this human connectedness for our residents in Cupertino.
All right. Well, there's been a lot of interest, and there's been a lot of rumors surrounding your possible candidacy and maybe running for the Board of Supervisors seat that's going to be vacated by Joe Simidian. Have you made any types of decisions towards that yet?
Yeah, some people have, a number of Cupertino folks have been talking to me about that. And one of the things that gratifies me the most in my term on City Council is my ability to do the work. I try hard to do the best job I can, and it's gratifying when people come up to say that, hey, you've been one of our best mayors. I want you to know that, and to hear that from different people. I think what I am definitely sure that I want to do is to I think I have enjoyed serving. Serving is a very worthwhile activity. It's not easy, but it's very worthwhile. I've enjoyed that. I want to continue to serve, and where I would serve, I'm going to let whatever is in the best interest of Cupertino, because this is the community that I'm in. Right now, I'm putting all my focus on my City Council race, and but I think it'll be an honor if people really think that I can represent Cupertino on a county level. That has never been done. We've never had a person from Cupertino to be on the County Board of Supervisors. A number of people have tried. They have not made it. We have a lot of county issues that our city and the county interface. For instance, recently with the annexation of Rancho Recanada, we interface with the county. In one of our biggest projects in terms of building affordable housing with the old firehouse land, that is buying the land from the county, and our whole sheriff department belongs to the county. And so just a variety of issues, we interact deeply with the county, and if I can be a representative on the county and serving Cupertino in that way too, that would be very gratifying. But that's down the road, and got to see what happens and how what Cupertino people want me to do.
Recently, the council was involved over many months in developing new standards for development in residential neighborhoods.
Right.
Issues of height and mass and privacy considerations. And seem fairly stringent to address the problem. Do you feel that the regulations now in place will deal effectively with the problem, or do you see the need in the immediate future to have other controls maybe?
Right. I think the issue of how our physical characteristics have been changing in terms of the style of the housing and the size of the housing has been brewing for a while. That has been brewing for a while. I thought that it has come to a point where it's important for us to look into that and appropriately modify or revise our existing ordinance. That's why last year when I was a mayor, I initiated the process of looking at our single-family residences and then brought together both our council and our planning commission to work on it together. We sat on this same podium to discuss how we're going to approach it. And I think the thing that makes me most proud of is that the whole council and the planning commission all believe that what we need to do in this case was to balance the rights of homeowners. Many people are homeowners and feel that they have rights, and the rights of immediate neighbors, and then even in the community. And so we felt that, I felt, and I think it's reflected in different ways by the whole council and planning commission, that that we can do this sensitively. Some people have growing families, and we've always allowed people to build more space historically in Cupertino to house their family needs. Some people even have extended families. Some people have children who've gone away and now they come back, whether they want it or not, or like it or not. And other people just have older generations living with them, a feeling that they need to take care of their parents and so on. That's on one hand. So we wanted to allow for building. On the other hand, there were certain characteristics of certain types of building that were not as popular. It's a little bit different from a community standard, and I think it could be changed some. So I think the result was a more stringent. We wanted, first of all, we wanted really to protect the rights of our neighbors, because it's one thing to say that you have the right to build even a second story, because that's historically the case in Cupertino. We do feel that whoever's building that second story should pay a good bit of attention to protecting the privacy of their neighbors to the extent that they can. So that would include window treatment, smaller windows, windows that have glazed glass, a window that has landscaping outside that will shield it. There's landscaping in between. It's not going to be perfect, right? But it's an important step, both a gesture as well as a reality of protecting the privacy of the folks next door, having them talk to each other about the changes. In the end, we accomplished, we changed our 45% FAR, floor area ratio, a little bit technical here, to a 35% floor area ratio if you were to go to second floor. But we also did something else which I thought was in the spirit of what our council wanted to do, was to say that we discovered that the footprint of the first floor was only 40%. So while we were allowing 45% in the past, because the footprint was only 40%, we were encouraging people to build second floors. So what we said was, at the end, it took us over a year, right? I started this during my term, but it was completed in Mayor Dean's term, right? But in the end, the light shone on us, and we said, hey, wait a minute. What's wrong with extending the first floor footprint from 40% to 45%? That would give people more space to build, and that would also encourage people to stay on the first floor. Isn't that great? And so I think it's that togetherness, if you like, on our council, that everybody's willing to think broadly and really weigh the options and be resourceful, that I think came to a successful conclusion on this change. I think it's a change in the right direction. Is it too much or too little? I think it's a good change, it's a moderate change, and then we can look back in time to see if that was the appropriate measure. People will let us know and say, hey, this was not effective enough. Oh, that was too much, right? So I'm a moderate person. I would prefer this kind of route. But I'm particularly pleased with the very extensive process we had and the participation, the very open participation from residents to come and talk.
Okay. Well, another one of the major projects that Council's been working on is the expansion of the library.
Yes.
And recently at a forum, three different options were unveiled to the public to get their comments on, and it was interesting to note that the public's choice was somewhat not necessarily in line with what City Council had initially suggested as the direction to go in. With what has transpired, where do you think it's going to go now?
Yeah, I think that first of all, let me just reiterate why it was believed that there's a need for a library expansion. The Cupertino Library is the most used library in the entire county system. Each year, over 1 million copies of books are lended out to residents, which means that each resident, Cupertino has 50,000 residents, on the average, every single resident has to borrow over 40 books. All right? Our library is so well used that at any one time, 1/3 of our collection is out, which means that if for some reason all the collection come in, we won't have space to put it. Under those circumstances, it's very hard to grow your collection. You always have to weed things out and so have a bigger collection. Because we have gone through a number of cycles here in Cupertino. After World War II, we had a big cycle of post-war baby boom. Everybody knows that. Our school districts went to 40 school system. Now, and then it went down in the 70s, and in the 80s it began to come up again. And so today we have a 24 school elementary and junior high system. That means we are having more and more students. And so to put some simple math together, what that means is that the projected trend of school-age children is going to continue to increase, at least for the next 10 years. So we have to ask this question. The library is already overcrowded. Lots of people, if you go in there, some people say, hey, it's like a zoo. Right? All right? It's so crowded, people, noise, talking, lots of people in there. Usage is so high. So if you were to project out and say, wow, if usage is so high right now, and in the next 10 years you're going to have more students using it, does it make sense to have the library on the par of all the other excellent facilities that we have in the city, right? What kind of library do you envision to support the education of our children? That's at least what we can do from the city end. And I think there's a belief, because this community values education, values excellence, I think that our community will want to have a library that reflects that excellence, that reflects that support, and hence a library that's somewhat bigger, that could put in a greater collection and better facilities. So that's what the reason, right, for a bigger library. And most of our communities, surrounding cities, have done that. Many of them, Saratoga, Mountain View, Los Altos, all have new libraries or expanded libraries. We're one of the last. latter ones to do that. Now, in terms of what we have done in the process, I think, and it's good. I think people sometimes have a skepticism about government, saying, oh, they've made up all the decisions. And I think it's a healthy one, and we've got to keep government on its toes. But I think, from my perspective, I serve on the Library Expansion Committee together with Council Member Don Burnett as our council representatives, that what we perceive ourselves doing was to do our homework rather than coming to the community without any study, without any thought. We thought that it's the best thing is to do some homework, and which is to get the librarians together, hire a library consultant to come up with a report for space needs. And what would that look like? Do some estimates of the cost, given some initial thinking about whether it should be a branch library or a library in the middle of the city. Some initial thinking as a starting point. Is anything cast in stone? I don't think so. At least this is one councilman that's not cast in stone, either about the design of the library or really whether we would have a library. What we're trying to do is to produce the best thoughts, both in terms of a process, and in the end, when we finalize that process, we've come up and we've been able to balance the input of different people. We're going to present a proposal to the voters of Cupertino, and the voters could say yay or nay, because this library is going to be a very heavy investment, and so I think that that's the proper route to do it. We need to do a good job in preparing, but the final decision on this one should be with the residents.
Let's talk about another important issue in redevelopment of Valco. We all know the history of Valco, what's going on there. There have been recent efforts to begin the redevelopment process.
Right.
You're well aware of that. In your view, are there any uses that currently proposed in tentative terms for Valco that you don't agree with, or would you like to see other things? And particularly Valco being in relation down Stevens Creek Boulevard from the compact sites, which will eventually be developed. Do you see some room there for negotiation with in terms of developing an overall development plan for the area?
Yeah, we're still in the very early stages of that process. And the plans, in fact, we have not had the study session to talk about this, and I think it's slated in a couple of weeks. So but I can take a stab at that. I think that there are some suggestions that the Valco site somehow be linked to the compact site. I think that's probably a good idea to look into. I think those are, the compact site is the last large piece of land that we want to develop in our city.
Right.
And so we've got to be extremely careful with that. We want to see what the compact folks have in mind. I would more likely favor mixed use. I would more likely favor density that's not too high. I would also favor some public usage of that. A lot of times people have said that, well, Cupertino really doesn't have a downtown, and we don't really have a downtown street as in Saratoga or Los Altos. But maybe we could do something there. We had the idea of maybe we can have a plaza there, where it's like a town place, right, where a lot of old cities, may very often have. You might have some small cafes around that plaza, so it can be a congregation point for people in Cupertino. So meet me at the plaza. We can have a cup of coffee there. Or maybe we could even have a giant chessboard there, and people can be playing chess there. That kind of idea. I think it's very hard to dictate retail development. Mm-hmm. If anything that we've known, when you say, oh, all the retailers go there and we know you will be, it doesn't work like that. And same with Valco. Valco's been struggling. Everybody knows that. for a long time, and there are some real reasons for that. The malls that are near us, whether it be Valley Fair or Stanford Shopping Center, they have developed when we stayed still, and so they're into taking as much of the market share as they could. And so we need to come up with a strategy to do that. And finally, I think we have a owner of the Valco that's up to that. It's the Jacobs Group. They own about 50 projects across the United States. And they've been able to bring in a new Macy here into the mall, and I think that's definitely a welcome development. And they will be bringing in a Dillard's soon. So that gives us some distinctiveness in terms of how to create our own niche on Valco. I think as we develop Valco, we want to be mindful of the traffic situation on Wolf Road. With the apartment houses that we put in near the freeway, there was at one point a fear that that's going to create a lot of traffic problem. And all our studies said that it won't as much. Of course, it's, and that has not materialized. And so, so I thought that was, in the end, a right decision to do that. But you can't just continue to develop. You have to keep a close eye on the traffic pattern there. Right now, we're at the beginning. I don't want to say that right off the bat, there are too many restrictions right now. I want people to think openly, creatively. What I would call for, though, is a lot of community oversight, a lot of community input, and I would ask our community to follow this closely too, and to give feedback about what are some of the proposals. We've heard some different proposals from the owners, but they keep changing. At one point they said, oh, we're going to probably we'd like to put in a cinemaplex there. And then we got some responses. Some people say yay, some people say nay. Now they say, well, we're not going to do that. So it's when they come up with something a little bit more firm rather than this thing, I think, and the process is on its way now, and this is the time to focus in.
Okay. Well, speaking about traffic, what's the situation like throughout the rest of the city, not necessarily just surrounding the Valco area? Mm-hmm.
Well, the traffic in the city is what we expect in this valley, that it has increased, and that it's a regional issue because people usually don't start their trip in Cupertino, end their trip in Cupertino. They go to different places. We have people coming from long distances, sometimes to work in Cupertino. We have pass-through traffic and so on. It's an area that we've always been working hard on. And particularly lately, we've scored some success in terms of traffic around school sites. Those are mostly local traffics. We've moved to a day and age where many parents, I think, rightly so, perceive that it's not as safe to have their younger kids walk to school themselves or do things like that. We're much more a car society. And so that has created more traffic around school sites, and with the school numbers increasing. But there's been a number of initiatives on that end, both in terms of the schools and the community neighborhood, looking closely at the pattern, trying to educate parents about good driving, rules and behaviors, enforcing those, and also encouraging parents to carpool. We have an all-trans program in the city that has worked very well in terms of asking parents what are their transportation needs and helping them facilitate carpools and so on. It's an area that we want to continue to work on. Right now we're in the process of getting new equipment to synchronize our traffic lights. That's when we read the weekly tell it as it is cards that are sent to the city. Those synchronization of lights has always been on there during the last 4 years, and so we're working on that kind of technological solutions. But it's something to continue to work on, and also work on a more regional basis with other communities, because a lot of these issues are collective issues that doesn't start and end in Cupertino.
Okay, well, it looks like as if we're out of time.
Okay.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And good luck on campaign trail.
Thank you. Thank you.
Election Tuesday is November 2nd. Please vote for the 2 candidates best suited to serve on Cupertino City Council. For a complete listing of election programs, their dates and times, pick up a free copy of the City Channel program schedule available at these locations, or log on to the city's website at www.cupertino.org. And keep watching the City Channel for more special City Council election programming.